So yeah, we thought it might just be kind of cool to show people through our gallery and explain a little bit about how this place works, because it's quite unique in the way that it, combines a lot of different genres of art. Obviously from fine art, paintings, sculpture, glass, furniture. There's just a whole lot going on, and I guess we display it in a way that people may be able to imagine it in their homes by doing it the way we do it. And of course, we've got this amazing old building, built in 1925, currently the oldest standing building in the commercial area of Margaret River. So turns 100 in a couple of years. Just been an amazing building, and having this front veranda has been great. We can show off things like, timber sculptures, seats. People can sit here and play with their phone, do what they want to do, but they're actually sitting on an art piece, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, let's go inside and have a look. Obviously the door we made. Used to have some nice old traditional French doors, but they were quite annoying for prams and things, so we designed and made that, which just allowed easier access and, kind of some groovy lines, and try and just do things a bit differently, to have a door that's not like a normal door. That's nice. And our furniture, we've always tried to design to be a little bit outside the square and not necessarily follow trends, but just let the timber do the work. And so yeah, we've got amazing tables like these. This is a big single slab that came from a fallen tree. All of our timbers pretty much come from a salvage source of one or another. We used to use timbers from old jetties and bridges and buildings, and these days we get a lot from the forest floor, which is amazing. And this one was a huge big Marri tree that came down in a storm down in Northcliffe. Hey Helen, how are you? I don't know, 15 or so years ago. And Dave went down there and collected the slabs that the farmer had cut, and they've just, look at that, there's not a joint in that. That's just an amazing big single slab with an oil finish. We've been using oil finishes for the last, 15 or so years, but we've really got into them in the last 5, and we're actually achieving some beautiful finishes with those. So yeah, classic wine rack. The Jazz, I designed that years and years and years ago for an event we were having in York, and it was just a way of getting the bottles to all nestle together. And original wine racks would have had divisions or some way of setting the bottles, but these, they just roll together, so you can actually fit a lot of bottles in a small space. So yeah, using again beautiful local timbers, natural edges, and again that combination of an artwork hanging above it. You get to show that's how it might be in someone's home. That's an amazing local scene done by Sam Broadhurst. Very detailed and kind of better than a photo. It's called photorealism, what he's doing, but it has more life in it than a photo ever will, I think. Maybe. I shouldn't say that, being my son being such a great photographer. But yeah, again, another one of Sam's. That's actually just down the road. This is Margaret River main break. You can't quite see where the surfers surf out here. The river mouth. Kilcarnup's back this way. Our little home studio is back in here. Great clock over here that was designed as part of our Kimberley project with Larry Mitchell, which was all based on, obviously being in the Kimberley rivers and waterfalls. Lara's father's actually a clockmaker or a watchmaker. So he helped me work out how to do the mechanism, and it was a bit outside the square because it's Leon, as he said, most clocks, it's fixed in its box and it's all cased in, but I wanted to expose the pendulums. I just think the pendulum, the way it swings, is amazing. This is actually made out of ebony and obviously stainless steel weights. They're so clever the way they work, they just work on the weight of those pendulums, keep it ticking at a particular rate. The sideboard, again, matched with a painting. This guy's work's great, Ken Rasmussen. He's developed as an artist over the years, lived down here for a long time, used to paint the Margaret River a lot. Always did amazing coloured lilies and little sort of almost psychedelic colours to his I guess it's impressionism. It's, you know, it would be a real thing, but he would paint it with his impression. Look at these old floorboards. You know, these are nearly 100 years old. They've seen a lot of feet walk over them. They could tell a lot of stories too, I reckon. It's a groovy little retro side table. These I just started making because I'd go to our timber pile and just find interesting bits of timber and wrap them up into a box, and it's always trying to find a way of, you know, showing these beautiful natural timbers in a way that can be functional. And that's quite a groovy little functional piece. There's a lot going on in this building everywhere you look. And even in here, I've kind of brushed over all this, but there's amazing glass and beautiful jewellery. There's so many, you know, so many artists have put so much into making this place what it is, which has been pretty special. This has been a cool cabinet when I designed that. Maybe 30 years ago. Again, it was a commission for a customer, and then it became a product that we've made, and we've actually used that display cabinet to show jewellery and sell a lot of work for the last 20 years, and it's just been bought by someone in New Zealand, so that's going to fly across the Tasman and live in Kiwi land. That's pretty exciting. Oh yeah, come on up here. This has always been a pretty groovy room, this one, because it's could kind of be like, you know, the old-fashioned dining room we used to have in houses. I mean, when I was a kid, you had a little table in the kitchen. That's where you ate most of the time, but you know, when it was a Sunday roast or whatever, we'd go to the dining room, and that's kind of what this room has been for us. And we've sold so many dining tables with so many different designs in here, and an incredible amount of different artwork, but it's always feels like a room. These beautiful Marri natural timbers, and I kind of got to the stage where I was sick of just bullnosing, so I started carving these sort of floating edges, a little bit like the way a wave might ripple along a beach or an undulation in a sandhill. It's just a matter of always trying to think up, I guess, different ways of reflecting the environment that we live in. And it does really feel like a room. And I think that's been one of the things about this building and this gallery, is that, you know, it's not your big pristine box with, you know, just a few objects in it. It's quite full, but it's the way we tend to live our lives with beautiful pieces all around us. So having little rooms and spaces has been a great way to show our work. You know, even here it's a little opportunity. It's our exit, emergency exit, but it creates an opportunity for a little foyer piece. I call this one the owl eyes because it's got the, started doing these big sort of handles, which kind of reminded me of big owl eyes. And we call that our owl eyes side table, and we always try and pick out some really nice feature timber for those tops. You can see that's an old Marri that's been through a lot of fires. The natural edge has been burnt. And that's the thing with these trees, they can live through the most intense fire. It's kind of what they're designed to do. They burn and then they regrow, and you get new shoots, and often that will create a new timber pattern. So this little space here, this used to be a garden out here when we first bought the building. You'd walk out this door and there was a big garden and then another building up the back, but I got sick of raking the leaves up. One day decided that the garden had to go, and we built this nice big box. So this box has been a great space to show our work. And it was quite a breakthrough in terms of the art we could display. I mean, we did garner the interest of some pretty significant West Australian artists when we built this room, because guys like Larry Mitchell, Sean Atkinson, Lee Hewson-Bauer, Helen Norton, and all of a sudden we had this big space where we could show works on a greater scale with a lot of nice natural light. When I designed it, I wanted to have light coming in all the way around the top, but obviously no sun, so we put a big overhang up, put the windows up really high, and it just brings that nice, we have a lot of artificial light of course, but the natural light plays a part in here. And it's a much cleaner space, so we do tend to display this room a bit less intense, so a little bit less work, less is more, as they say. Larry Mitchell's been doing this work, studying our limestone coast I guess, documenting some of the rock formations up and down the coast. This one's from Rottnest Island. His work's incredible. We've done some really nice projects with Larry. And that collaborative process of working with artists, that's what another thing that this gallery's given us, is the ability to not just sit on our own and make furniture and come up with our own ideas, but it's to work and collaborate with other artists and learn. I mean, I think Larry and Sean both taught me how to read my landscape a lot better. I mean, obviously I'd always done it, I guess, intuitively, but when you learn what you're actually taking in, and then you learn how you can express that back, that really helps with design, and really, I've grown a lot as an artist, as a woodworking artist, by getting to know guys like Larry, Mitchell and Sean and all the other artists that we work with. So it's been pretty special. So this room, we've had a lot of collaborative shows. So over the years, we've done shows where we'll go to an area like the Kimberleys. In fact, that clock down the front I alluded to before, that was out of one of our shows with Larry. And he came back and did 8 paintings. We both went up and lived in the area for a period of time, and then came back and created our work. So I created furniture pieces that evoked, feelings from that area, and Larry would do paintings. And they were very successful exhibitions because people enjoy those, that connection between the artist and the furniture maker. But also they love areas like the Kimberley, and to be able to, I guess, collect a piece that's been created from one of those projects has been pretty special. So this is a collaboration I did with a great Australian designer, Leslie John Wright. We call it the Reef Collection. I did this when we were building our house and studio in Narrabri. And it was all about, the house was steel and glass and light, and we've got the ocean out the front, and the big, I guess, limestone overhangs, and even in the reef overhangs underwater, these sort of suspended slabs, and trying to keep the timber light by expressing the stainless steel frame from below up through the top, almost like the bezel of a ring, the way you set a diamond. So a lot went into that collection, but the pieces ended up very simple, which was beautiful. Leslie has since passed away, which is very sad. He was a great Australian furniture designer that we did some work with. Just the way those two pieces work together, the stainless steel reflecting through that top is kind of bringing light up towards the painting, and that's just that really lovely connection, that piece of glass there pulling the blue from the water. It's a pretty special way to show our work, to be able to have these other artists show their work with us. And that's what this space has allowed. I mean, look, in here we've got, because of course we work with precious timbers that are rare and unique, and through Lara's jewellery background, we started doing some work with Argyle pink diamonds, of course gold from places like Kalgoorlie, and these raw materials that West Australia has to offer. And from that, we've had a full collection of jewellery and pink Argyle diamonds that we've been showing for the last 2 or 3 years to huge success. In fact, we were blown away with the success of this little project of getting involved with pink diamonds and these rare pieces of Western Australia. So we've had people from all over the world come and collect these. And I guess it was just another example of how this crossing of genres in an art gallery situation can really work. Jewellery is such a high form of art and so intricate, and it always blows my mind to see how tiny all those little details are in a piece of jewellery. But look at this work. I mean, it's just the most incredible art. And of course, it's got nature's art, these pink diamonds, which are so rare, transformed by artisans into just another great art form that we've been able to display in this space. This is an interesting room. It's got a couple of very interesting pieces in it. The surfboard at the back there, that's a collaborative project I started back in 2009 with Jim Banks, who's a very highly regarded, initially a pro surfer who walked away from pro surfing and basically just started looking for new frontiers for surf in Indonesia, and really played a big part in opening up Indonesia and discovering some of the incredible waves up there. But he's also an amazing surfboard shaper. I've been riding his boards for years and years now. So I kind of knew Jim, and he always had a love for timber. So he came to my studio in Narrabeen. And the first piece we created was that 9-foot gun of his, which is from the design out of what he calls his Hit the Road collection, made for riding big waves. And of course, Jim's from Cronulla in New South Wales, but he used to love coming to WA and surfing in the northwest up at the Red Bluff. So he really designed those boards to surf, our heavy waves here in WA of Margaret River and Bommy and boat ramps, but also the northwest, Red Bluff and Nalu. So that was an amazing project to do, was to be able to create a piece like that surfboard. So the timber in this came from an old jetty in Green Hills out the back of York. At the time that we had a big studio up there in an old flour mill, and we bought these old bridge timbers, and the Jarrah in that bridge, the timbers for that bridge, they were cut in the early 1900s, probably from trees that would have been, 500 or 600 years old, so well before European settlement. So just amazing to be able to use materials like that. And of course it's not surfable, it's way too heavy, weighs about 60 kilos. I hollowed out these two sections, they've been chambered just to take a bit of weight out of it, but it still weighs about 60 kilos. And down here, these are handmade she-oak fins, which actually just press fit in. They're probably tight, so they probably won't just come out, but they can just be popped out for transport. But they're just so sculptural surfboards. We've got she-oak stringers through it, so we've got the she-oak stringers, the she-oak fins, and then it's finished in an oil finish. Jim's a bit of a purist, so he kind of helped get me started on the journey with oil. I was already on it, but it helped cement to me the idea of not having a lacquer over timber, just having, I'm just touching the wood here, and it's just been sanded to a very fine finish, which gives it its sheen, and the oil just seals it and nourishes it, so it doesn't, it helps protect it. But anyway, I'm waxing on a bit, but it's just a beautiful thing. And this table here is really amazing. So when we were in the front gallery, I pointed out a single slab. Well, that single slab actually came off here. So this was there's a huge Marri. We've actually got photos. When it came down in the storm, its roots got torn out of the ground. I don't know how high it would have been, probably 30 metres high. It's a big, big tree, maybe 20 metres, but it was a very big tree. And this, when Dave went to buy those slabs that came off the other end, this big lump was lying in the paddock, and it was the head of the tree. So there was a couple of tree forks at the top and a branch coming out this way, and there was another one off the top. And Dave said to the farmer, what are you going to do with that big lump over there in the paddock? And he said, well, I don't know, it's a pretty weird shape. We were thinking we're just going to push it up and burn it. And he said to Dave, if you buy all these slabs off me, you can have that. So Dave jumped at that, and he could see what was going to be inside that head, because we know that inside these, wherever there's a tree fork, there's this crutchwood, you get this amazing flame grain. So Dave, to his credit, it weighed 9 tonne, so it wasn't an easy thing to pick up. Had to get a machine, load it onto a truck, get it to Manjimup. And we've got a friend over there that's got a huge, big horizontal bandsaw. I think it cuts 2 metres, which this was just on the edge of that. We had to trim a few pieces off to get it so his bandsaw could cut it. And he slabbed up this tree head into slabs, and they've been sitting drying in our yard for 10 or 12 years. And just before Christmas, knowing that we were going to start to wrap things up with Dave wanting to retire, I thought I've got to make myself a table for home out of one of these slabs. So I went to the pile, I pulled out a beautiful slab, and I started working on it. And as I'm working on it, I'm just getting blown out by all the colour and the grain and the patterns and tension that's going on in here. And then one of our customers had been in the gallery and missed out on a big table that we had here. And Lara said, well, look, Gary's making a big table, why don't you have a look? So I sent him a sketch and I sent him some photos. Great customer of ours, and very passionate about what we do, loves our work, and he just said, I want one. So there was another slab just below the one I'd used. So I pulled that out, and pretty much alongside my table, I started making his table. And I'll have a little bit of a look at there's quite an interesting structure underneath it. I really wanted the top of this table to be the hero. So we put just the standard 2 legs at this end, we taper them. I really just wanted the table to sit up and present itself. But under here, I kind of went for this crisscross. So the table kind of just floats if you stand back and look at it. So I put this cross and then, of course it's a huge top, it needed support back up here. So I ran this diagonal brace, and that braces this front crisscross, and then I've picked it up with some little blocks up here, and then built a whole frame structure underneath it. Because even though it's been obviously drying for a long time and it's fully seasoned, this table's going to want to expand and contract and move, and you need that full support. So I've got the whole frame structure going on. I've got little toggles rather than, it's not screwed on, it's just toggled on. So the whole top will expand and contract on that base. So I've got to deliver this table into their home, and again, it's that oil finish. So that is just oil and wood. The oil's completely natural. There's no man-made chemicals in it. It's a natural oil, and it shows. You'll see a few little lumps and bumps because that timber's alive and it's not just staying still. It undulates a little bit. It's not perfectly flat, but that's what it is. That's what timber does. It is a natural material that has a life of its own, and it actually never dies. So it's been really special. Bless his soul, Clark agreed and Sharon agreed to let us show the work for 6 months before we closed so that people could come and enjoy this table. We do have some more pieces of it in our storage area. So yeah, I'm making a desk actually for my sister-in-law that is one of our very talented jewellers, Gemma Baker. So I'm making her a desk off a piece of timber from this same log, from this same head, for her studio up in Geraldton. So that's in my workshop right now. Look at that burl. Incredible. We call it our tiger burl because it's just got all this, just so much black gum vein following the grain. Marri burls can be incredible like that. Because they get a lot of gum in them, the gum becomes a feature, and you get that contrast between the honey warm colour of the Marri, and then you get the black against it, and they're just beautiful things. Spectacular timber. Spectacular. This is another beautiful table, curly Jarrah. Jarrah is just such a rich, strong hardwood, and really revered. When they first found it, when they came, the Poms, the English came and settled, they called it Swan River mahogany because it was red like mahogany, but then they'd never seen Jarrah before. But it's harder than mahogany. It's a much harder timber, much denser, and very, very resilient. And again, it gets beautiful feature in it. This has got lovely curl and pattern, and obviously got the natural edges, but this tree's been under tension, probably from the wind, and it's created this crimpling, which we call fiddleback in the furniture game. So that's just a beautiful fiddleback Jarrah table. And there's a little bedroom the girls have created. So this was out of our Margaret River exhibition, this filigree work. I always sort of loved, when I go for a surf, I'll run down a track and you look and there's this little canopy of, might be melaleucas, and you get the sinewy, woody branches and then this canopy of foliage over the top. And of course the same if you walk into the Brannup forest, you've got the big carry trees, and you get that canopy of beautiful green growth over the top, and that's what this is all about. The filigree work, very basic filigree, fairly open, but it just creates that feeling of a little forest. And again, it's timber, it's nice to lie in bed and think that you've got a forest close by. So that's been a great design of a way of connecting to our nature down here. We'll just keep wandering through. It's an interesting little room, this one. Obviously, there's always art turning over in here. We've got it coming and going, so we needed a racking space, and we built these racks, and I think there's actually more wall space in these racks than there is in the rest of that whole room next door. because it's double-sided and you can pull them out. But people love coming in here and looking for little treasures in the racks. You know, often that's where they'll want to come and shop, because they think they're going to find something that someone else hasn't seen or whatever. But it's been a pretty cool space. You know, people get stuck in here for hours just pulling paintings out and contemplating. And so it's just, you know, it's a very small space, but you can show a lot of work in a small space with a good racking system. So that's been a great addition to which we built when we built this big box. It's our rocking chair, which of course we've celebrated before. One of Mana's videos. Sue's Chase, which again we've done a whole video on that. Lovely piece. This guy came from the UK as an artist in resident here for about a month or two. He had a van and wandered up and down the coast, based out of our home or studio in Jarrah. And he's a plein air artist, so he basically goes to a site, sees what he sees and paints it there and then. And I watched him work when he did some work here, and yeah, he uses spray cans and he uses his hands, he gets covered in paint. But yeah, it's amazing work. This one's from the UK, of course. Joe Webster's his name, and I said to him because his work he did here was fantastic. I said, well, you're going to send us some more Margaret River work when you get home? He said, well, I can't, because I have to paint what I see. He doesn't take work from photos. He just gets in the environment and lives it and creates that work. So they're pretty special pieces. They're very much, obviously, you know, one obviously can't paint another one like this, that's the same. And he's also affected by the environment on the day. Like when he was here, it was the middle of winter, which he loved because he got a lot of drama out of the sky and what have you. But, you know, he'd be painting and then it would start pouring with rain and the canvas would get wet. But it's funny, it never fazed him. That would just change his painting, and he'd work with the drips and the drops. And it was a really interesting process to see how that worked. I never really understood what a plein air artist was until I met Joe and spent some time with him. Very, very groovy little Allies sideboard. I think my sister's put a hand up for this one. An amazing Marri in that, oil finish and beautiful big sheer oak handles on it. And very functional little piece of furniture. Yeah, kind of got that retro look again. Here's a groovy little desk made out of a Jarrah burl. There's a cut and fold. So the burl was here. This part is actually the tree. The burl was growing off the side of it. So it was a weird shaped little slab, and I thought, what am I going to do with that? And desks are great because they don't have to be uniform. You don't need to sit all the way around them. You just need to find a little spot you can work from, which is we've got there with a little drawer. And yeah, you can create a little work of art that you can sit and work at for forever and then hand down to your kids. Let's go up the back. There's another whole building yet, believe it or not. When they first built this, it was called the International Trading Company, and it was basically a house at the back, and the little building down the front was their trading house or their shop. And like a general store, I guess, they sold all sorts of things. So for a long time, this was a dwelling up the back, but it's had so many different, you know, things go on in it. Again, look at these weatherboards. I mean, these are nearly 100 years old that they've been on the building, and they haven't had much done to them. Like, we don't paint them. It's just, Jarrah is just such a resilient material. Doesn't rot. White ants don't like eating it. Yeah, it's a fabulous old building. Here we are in the rear building. So originally, when we bought the place, these windows and doors were actually on that side, and there was a veranda there that went down to the courtyard. But when we built that big box, I didn't want to just lose those. I wanted to reuse them, so I pulled them out of there and put them into this wall. So we'll just do a bit of a walk through here. This is a good little room. It's a little bit, we've had this set up in lots of different ways, and it has been a lounge, so these are really cool little tables. I think I said before, I just got to the stage where I started going to our timber stacks and just opening up a pack and going, I'm going to make something out of this. And some of them were weird bits of timber that you'd think would be hard to use. But so I started just doing these little cut and fold coffee tables. And again, that piece of timber would be hard to use for much else, but it makes such a great little magazine rack here. I think Dave made this one. We've made quite a few of these now. Dave went to the pile recently and found this very odd, unusable looking piece of timber, and he's just turned it into a little work of art. And even this end, you know, like he cut and folded this down. Swing that around so you can see it. And of course, this was absolutely beautiful, but it kind of stopped here and the table would have fallen over. So we just joined a leg onto it. It's just a really clever way of being able to use that, otherwise unusable. And it was like, what are we going to do? It's got no balance. Oh, let's just put another leg on it. So that's the great thing you can do with timber, you know. It's not like metal where you can cut and fold and weld it, but you know, if you get your miters right, you can certainly cut and fold it and create some really interesting shapes with timber. And you get just that, look at the beautiful grains and knots and borer holes and, you know, things that historically, certainly in the furniture industry, when I first started back in the 80s, you know, no one would have used timber like that. In fact, we used to use recycled building materials that had nail holes in it. I remember one of the exhibitions I went to, all the old boys are coming up and looking at it going, you can't make furniture out of that, Gary, it's B-grade timber. And I'm like, but it's beautiful, look at the features in it. And funnily enough, 10 years later, everybody was making furniture using feature grade material. In fact, Bunnings named a whole range of their timber feature grade. So it's funny how the worm turns, and it's great because all that material that would have been wasted or gone out as firewood or just chucked to one side now gets utilised. So it's been a good thing. So yeah, a little cut and fold audio unit. I just like that idea of continuing the timber along, being able to throw a few books or magazines in, and as I say, this, you know, you can picture this as a lounge room, and look at that, look at the way that light's washing over that painting. I mean, it's probably not ideal, but it just creates a feeling, you know, the sun pouring through the window and lighting up that little bit of forest. And that's the beauty, again, of having a building that's really wasn't purpose-built as a gallery, but it can certainly work as a gallery space if you think about the way you place things and put a few windows in the right places and what have you. So this room we're getting a bit low on furniture at the moment because everything's been selling so fast, we haven't been able to make it fast enough lately. So we're down to a very small dining table in this room, but a pretty cool little kitchen table. We used to sit around one at Mum and Dad's place. It was only 1,500 long, and I realised you actually don't need a massive table to fit a lot of people. So I started making these little kitchen tables, and that's where that design came from. And that was what we used to, you could sit that in a kitchen, you know, it doesn't need a big space. And yeah, beautiful natural timber, oil finish, something you can live on and work on and have lots of family conversations around. They've got a little kitchen over here. One of our original ideas here, we thought we'd rent this space out as holiday accommodation, which we never got round to doing. But consequently, it's added to the feeling of this space because it makes it feel like a little home, and having a little kitchen in there. And it's been handy. We have functions and what have you. We use the kitchen with a fridge tucked away there. So yeah, it's a good little space. And through here, we've got a couple of bedrooms. Let's go and have a look. Actually, a little courtyard out there. We've got a spa and a sauna. And just this nice feeling of a bedroom, which it has been over the years, I'm sure. I mean, look at the floor. I think we were deciding whether to lime wash the floor, and we just never... I sanded the floor, put some lime wash on it, and yeah, we don't like that, let's leave it Jarrah. It's had a lot of lives, this place. Paint spilled on it, but you know, it all adds to the effect. Makes it an interesting space. Leaf returning images mirror, another old design from the late 80s, probably late 80s, that one for sure, 88, 89. Wall hanger bed head, great work by local artists. Shannon Hamilton's work, Astrid Dahl, one of our great artists that we've done a lot of exhibitions with. And there's a little bathroom in here, which is quite interesting. Well, it's got an interesting piece of timber in it. The Black Heart sassafras from Tasmania. Incredible timber. It's not a softwood, it's kind of in between. I'd call it a mid-range timber, but it has this black heart in the middle of it. So when you cut through it, you get these really distinctive black lines and then this pale outer timber. Some sort of fungus causes the sassafras to do that. I'm not sure what, but it's spectacular timber. That's from Tasmania. This has been a bedroom a lot for us over the years. Recently a little dining room, at the moment showing a really great coffee table it was actually out of the collaboration I did with Jim Banks. Obviously a surfboard, Malibu style surfboard. Just really pretty she oak with black butt and some, these came from the Abrolhos Islands, these pearls. A friend of mine, Monty's, he's a sparky, but he's a beautiful surfer and an amazing surfboard shaper. And he's been making these boards. This one actually, they got it timber out, but I actually reckon the best artwork's on the back. He does these amazing sprays. And he hand draws this, that's all hand drawn onto rice paper, which is very groovy. He wanted to show his boards, you know, I said, yeah, bring them in, mate, let's show them. And then one last little bathroom, and this is actually a really pretty little Marri top in this one. Yeah, people started asking us if we'd do their bathroom cabinets, and we said no. We did have a time at JahRoc where we did kitchens and cabinets and all that, but we gave that up back in the early 90s, so we just do it for ourselves. But beautiful timber, look at it. Oh, this is a bit of a storyboard. So yeah, it kind of starts up here. So this was Dave, myself and my girlfriend Janie at the time in Queensland when we met in 1982. Dave was from Kalamunda. I'm from Busselton originally and then around the state. Lived in Perth when I was a teenager. But never knew Dave. But we bumped into, we were in a wrecking yard in Nambour getting parts for our old cars, and our girlfriends started chatting and they realised we had mutual friends back in Perth. And it turned out Janie knew very well one of Dave's good friends. So we became friends back then, just on a surfing trip around Australia. You know, became great mates for about a year, surfed together, lived on the Sunshine Coast. Dave went off around the world, I came back to WA and then started JahRoc in '87, and then about a year later, Dave got back from his world travels, and he's a cabinet maker by trade and very talented one actually, and very meticulous about how he puts things together. A lot more patient than me. Anyway, he liked what I was doing. He didn't want to be a cabinet maker, he wanted to build kitchens and do all that. So he jumped on board, and that's really what really kicked JahRoc along. I'd been on my own up until then, and it was a bit of a struggle. And mind you, we did struggle for quite a lot longer than that together, but the combination of the two of us, Dave was meticulous and you know, didn't mind working with figures and numbers. I was more interested in being creative and getting outside and finding good bits of timber and making things. So we made a really good team. Dave was prepared to do the admin side of it, and I guess sometimes the laborious work, and he was happy for me to just be the creator. So it was the beginning of an amazing partnership that's gone for 35 years now, 36 years actually. And that's just part of our story. You know, we used to collect timber from up in the hills where my sister lived in Stone. That's one of our very early tables, little 2J stone table. That was in my old house in Scarborough, mine and Janie's place. And I'd collected the Jarrah from old buildings they were pulling down around Scarborough, got the rocks from up in 2J, and that's where JahRoc came from, basically Jarrah and rock. Furniture, there's a little story about a trip to Hollywood Peter Godden and I made, promoting our work. The story of the flour mill in York, we bought that in 1993, which was a completely dilapidated old flour mill, pretty much no windows, the roof was missing, most of the floors weren't in it. You could stand on the ground floor and see the sky, full of pigeon shit and pigeons. Anyway, in a mad moment, we bought that and renovated it, turned it into a quite incredible 3-story gallery with a cafe, and we created space for about another 10 artisans that rented little studios from us. And it was a real hive of artistic activity. It was a great little part of our career. Went from 1993, and I think we ended up moving out of there in about 2008. So we were there for 15 years. And that building was very close to being demolished when we bought it. We fully renovated it, and now it's, you know, hopefully that'll last forever now. No one will want to knock that down again because it's a very usable space. And then it talks about our journey moving to Margs, buying the land at Narrabut. It's me working on our house back in whatever year that would have been, 1999, I think. I tried to get as much as I could up before the GST kicked in 2000. And we moved there to live in about 2002. We bought this building where we are now. That kind of shows a bit of a picture of the two old buildings with the gap in the middle where the garden used to be, and the beginnings of that big box we've built, which is now the big gallery space in the middle. And there's the windows and doors I was just talking about, these exact ones. So there's the door and the two windows, and they are now here. So that's another cool part of our story, and, you know, talks about our collaborations, a little bit about the big fires we had in 2011. We lost a lot of materials. So yeah, that's all on our website, I think, somewhere. And I'm actually in the process of creating a book and, of course, some live footage with my son Mana. We'll create some work through our YouTube channel, and there'll be more to come on that, which will be exciting to do. And that's pretty much a wrap of JahRoc at 83 Bustle Highway.